Hello and welcome to Weekly MTG. I'm your host, Blake Rasmussen, and I have two pretty fantastic guests here today. Two insane guests. If you followed social media at all this weekend, at all, even just a little bit, you probably stumbled across some Mystery Booster 2 news. And if you didn't, well, we're going to have a lot to talk about today. But these two gentlemen here are among the crazy people who put together this wild set. So we've got Gavin and Zakeel here. Why don't you, real quick, before we dive into it, what was your role on Mystery Booster 2?
Yeah, so I was sort of like the visionary of it, I suppose. So I helped create the first Mystery Booster. And then for this time around, Zakeel was like, hey, we're going to make Mystery Booster 2. And as he will talk about probably in a second, and I was like, great, let's make it happen. So I teamed up and I made all the playtest cards, or helped create those playtest cards at least. I got help from a few folks on them. And then Eric Engelhardt, who is not here today, was kind of the lead on the main part of the set with some guidance from me as well. So big shout out to Eric for his work on that.
All right. And I'm Zakeel, so I was the product designer on Mystery Booster 2. I'm also a product architect for Tabletop Magic. So you can think of us kind of as like executive producers of each Magic set. I did Bloomborough before this, which is awesome.
Just a couple bangers in a row right there, you know.
A couple of fun sets, and I worked on this project. I want to say it's been a little bit. It's like over a year and a half ago, with Gavin and Eric, and the team. We wanted to create the most awesome convention, crazy, wacky product, which we'll get into here in a second. And I'm super glad that we were able to bring it to life.
It is so wild.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so it's Mystery Booster 2. So we've done this before, but if there are people who aren't familiar with the Mystery Booster concept, Gavin, what is this nonsense?
Right, so I love Chaos Draft. It's one of my favorite ways to play, right? Grab a bunch of random packs and draft. And back in, back about 5 or so years ago, oh my gosh, 2019, five years ago, that's wild. Anyway, but back in 2019, released it at the first one at Magic Fest back then, I suppose,
yeah.
Richmond. And what it is it's a pack with, it's set about 1,800 Magic cards. It's got reprints from Magic's history from truly all over the place. And it's sort of a curated Chaos Draft. So you can draft it, but we've curated it down a little bit, so you're not going to get like as many weird one-offs that just don't work or have no function, although there are still some of those, because a little bit of that is fun. And it is, and also in the original version, we put one of these playtest cards in every pack. These are things that I came up with, which I call them sort of between a main set and an unset in like the Future Sight design space. So Future Sight was a big inspiration for the original to me of like, these don't really work in Magic, but if we wanted to and tried hard enough, we could get them to work in Magic. So that was the first time around. And that was already wild. I remember making it being like, this is the weirdest product I've ever made. Everyone's like, what are you doing? This is super wild and strange. So when Zakeel comes and is like, we're gonna do Mystery Booster 2, it's like, how are we gonna top that? And well, we had a few tricks up our sleeve, I think.
Yeah,
You found a few ways. We're gonna talk about each of those ways throughout the show. So a ton of cards got revealed on social media this weekend through an event Gavin ran and just some packs being handed out and just kind of general tomfoolery. So we are going to go through a bunch of cards. Some you may have seen, some you may not have. We were going through the list before the show, and we know that some were not opened. So there will be some new cards.
One of the things about this preview plan is like, we don't know what people are going to open, right? We handed out packs, and it's like, some maybe they open, maybe they don't. Who knows?
It's a mystery.
So 1,800 cards.
Yeah. Right. And this set is even bigger than the first time around, too. So it is wild.
Yeah, so we're going to run through a bunch of cards. We're also going to talk about like the makeup of the set, some of the decisions that went into things, some of the weird choices that were made. I'm looking at you, Whiteout. And we're just going to go through it, have a little fun, and then we will answer questions towards the end of the show about anything you want to know about Mystery Booster. And we'll avoid saying it's a mystery too much. We're going to say it's some.
I'd say that's a mystery.
Okay, so let's kick things off with some previews. So we've got these in categories by sort of the type of card. And we're starting off with a bunch of cards. Now, the image you're going to see on the screen is not going to have the little Planeswalker symbol on it. But the first batch we're going to start with are the ones that are going to have that little Planeswalker symbol on it. So let's start with a card I didn't realize existed until we put it in this set, Ancestor Dragon. Gavin, where is this from?
Yes, this is a great one to kick off in. So with the first Mystery Booster, we liked grabbing stuff from all over the place, and we did a bunch of that. But this set really goes all out, and Eric did a fantastic job, and we kind of worked together on this, of most sets I don't remember the exact number, but I think almost every set from Mirage forward is represented here somewhere. And when I say set, I mean like mini dual decks and strange one-off things and some wild stuff we'll even get into in a little bit. And Ancestor Dragon is, of course, I'm sure you'll all remember, Global Series, right? Global Series 1.
Yep.
The first one
The
and
first-
last one.
Last so far.
Yes, and this is one of the rares coming out of those decks. Not normally a limited card. Wasn't, not like super strong in constructed Magic, but it is a rare that's kind of hard to find, given that it was in Global Series. And in limited, it's actually pretty solid. Oh, it's a Mahamodi Jin with upside. Awesome, And just a great example of the wackiness you will find in this product. And then go ahead.
I was going to say, Zakeel, a lot of these cards are weird. We're going to see even weirder than this and more off-kilter than this. What was it like kind of behind the scenes trying to figure out where to grab the art and the frame and just putting the cards together for this?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mystery Booster 2 was really kind of a blank canvas. Like we really had the flexibility and opportunity to really do whatever we wanted. Over the last couple of years in the kind of Booster Fun era, we've experimented with things like retro frames and the remastered product line and occasional one-off promos like textless promos and stuff. There was one seed for the Future Sight frames before this product came out that some fans may have seen. When we did our 30th anniversary promos, there was a Tarmogoyf that had the Modern Masters artwork in the Future Sight frame. And that was kind of a seed by me to be like, I hope people like this because I really want to put it in this product. And it came out and people thought it was awesome. So to answer your question, it is both one, how can we create a top-down, exclusive, fun, crazy, wacky experience both for gameplay, but also just awesome chase collectibles that you can really only find here.
Yeah.
And with me and Eric, one of our goals was to pull from a lot of wild places. And I know the one things we managed to do is there's very, very, very few reprints from the first Mystery Booster. So there's a couple cards that overlap, especially when we get into some of the unique frames, which we'll talk about later. But it was a fun challenge to be like, how many different, the first set was 1,800 cards. How many different cards can we grab for this Mystery Booster? So you're getting a very different experience. And for that, we wanted to grab different versions of sets, different looking cards, different kinds of stuff that make it feel like if you drafted Mystery Booster 1 and 2 together, you would have a really wild experience. No one has done that yet, by the way. I hope to be the first. We'll find out. So.
All right, well, let's move on to some of these weirder cards. So we have another card that, originally printed in a booster set. This version is from the Vault. So this is a favorite of mine. Here's Cataclysm from the Vault, Annihilation.
That's right.
I think it was.
One of the first products I worked on.
Yeah.
Or led, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a reprint all the way here. And notably, From the Vault, it existed in foil, right? It's printed in foil. Here, it appears in non-foil for the first time. So that's something that was also taken into consideration. It's like, oh, here's this artwork. It's never existed outside of foiling. Let's do a cool non-foil version here. And there's a few cards like that, especially one we'll get into in a little bit, that it was a very cool opportunity.
All right. Let's take a look at our next card.
I'm so excited about this
one. Was raving about this beforehand. Cogwork Librarian. Zakeel, how many of these conspiracy-like cards should we expect to see in this set?
I want to say there's a half dozen, I believe. There's about a half dozen, and this is just a great example of something that we can do in a product like Mystery Booster that we can't do in a normal booster. Yeah. Original Conspiracy and Conspiracy 2 are some of my favorite draft environments of all time. I know Gavin, I believe, led those and was on those.
I worked on them, yeah.
And Cogwork Librarian, for the Cube fans out there, is just like kind of an all-timer, right?
Yep.
It scales to the power of your limited environment, and in the case of this product, you can open this in pack one, maybe after a couple picks, and then, all right, I have the structure of my deck, there's nothing left in the pack, let me take this and then see how I can leverage it more in pack 2 and pack 3.
One of the things I really love about Mystery Booster is it's a great place to put cards that have trouble finding a home somewhere else. And Cogwork Librarian is an all-time card. Like, cubes love it. People talk about how much fun it is in draft, but it wouldn't fit into a normal draft set that we would make. And so it's a great chance to kind of get more out there, not only to reprint it, but also just to let you play with it again, right? It's fun that you can crack open a Mystery Booster, and it's even wilder here because you open it up and you're like, wow, I've never seen this before. And then you draft it, or your friends telling you their story about it, and kind of every Mystery Booster has a story, something I like to say. You can open one, and all three of us could go through the pack and tell you all kinds of stories from it. Yeah. And Cogwork Librarian, I've got so many good stories about. So.
Gavin, what are your stories behind this next card, Cryptic Command?
Oh yeah,
this is just Yeah.
It's just a sweet Magic card. The story is I qualify for the Pro Tour playing it. I don't know what to tell you. Of course you just have some, I'll call them more normal reprints here, right? Just things that players play a lot and enjoy and want to own and are memorable, right? Like my goal was every pack would have two things: something that you would have memories of, and something that would surprise you.
Yeah.
And Cryptic Command is definitely in the memories camp of like you see it and you're like, oh, I've got some nice fuzzy memories of Cryptic Command, or I remember playing this somewhere. And then there's some cards that will are really out of left field and will surprise you. Like maybe our next card here, if we bring it up on screen.
Well, before we get to that, so Zakeel, I want to note that this is from Iconic Masters.
Right.
How, Cryptic Command has a number of really popular printings. How do you determine which printing to go with on some of these?
Yeah, I think that in the case of this project, we were trying to have the most representation in terms of set symbols of any set in Magic's history, and I knew the total beforehand. I believe it's over 100 sets, or like 150 sets from Magic's history are represented here. So Cryptic Command happened, from Iconic Masters, happened to kind of check off that goal. I also think that we are, as you'll see later on, there's some, I'll get into when we show a couple cards, that we are also cautious and intentional about like, what is a cool, awesome printing that we can make that people will be excited about and be able to add to their collections that feels meaningfully different from one that we already have. So this, obviously, the kind of list style reprint is more for a specific gameplay, but as we get into some of the more collectible hits here, you'll see some of the intentionality from product design.
For sure.
Yeah. You actually just mentioned the list, which is a great segue into our next card, which is Elmar Ulvenwald Informant. There we go. Gavin, what's unique about this card?
Yeah, you all remember this card, right? Everyone's played with this one before. So this is the SLX version, so kind of the in-world version of a Universes Beyond card that appeared in Universes Beyond Stranger Things.
Yep.
From the Secret Lair. And this is the alternate version of that character. I've probably never played this card limited before, and one thing I find really enjoyable is cracking a pack, being like, what the heck is this? I've never seen it in my entire life, and then proceeding to put it in your limited deck, right? This card has probably been played in limited I don't know what the numbers, but it's got to be pretty small. And it turns out it's actually quite strong in your draft. So kind of a fun one up here. I love, by the way, the Friends Forever text. You're like, you get down there, you watch what the ability does. You're like, oh, this is a relevant text right here, So that really adds to the kind of mystique and mystery behind it. And to be clear, not all these are in there. This is, there's plenty of things in Mystery Booster that are like a one-off random thing just kind of hanging out. So don't expect the whole set of this Secret Lair to be in there. This is just a fun little one-off to kind of show the spread of wacky stuff we grabbed for this.
Yep. All right, next up, we also do some weird stuff with the set symbols, as you can see here with Forked Lightning.
Yeah, this one is wild.
Yeah, this is very bizarre.
You want to tell this story, Zakeel?
Yeah.
Because this is, like I said, you think we got a little bizarre last time? We blew off the doors for this one.
Yeah, so there's a couple sets from Magic's history that have existed specifically on Magic Online. They are curated, again, essentially curated draft environments from, I want to say 10 years ago plus.
Longer, yeah.
Big Masters Edition, maybe, even more than that. And they've never appeared in paper, so this is the first time they will ever appear in paper. Again, the entire set is not here. There's only a few of these cards from the different sets that are exclusive to digital, but why not?
Yeah, so we grabbed stuff from Masters Editions, Vintage Masters, which was on Magic Online only, to really get a spread of like, you open this and you're like, that can't be right, or I've never seen this symbol before, and then you look around and you ask your friend and they're like, oh, I remember drafting this on Magic Online 15 years ago, right? It just creates some really fun moments in discussion, and for me, so much about Magic is that storytelling and that history, and being able to have those discussions, and I bet many of you watching right now did not even know Masters Editions existed, and now, you can have a fun little story to tell all your friends, so.
All right. The next one isn't so much a fun story as it is just a powerful card. So here's Grist, the Hunger Tide.
Although you can't look at this and tell me it's not a weird Magic card.
It is a super weird Magic card. I will give you that. It is also a very strong Magic card.
True. So yeah, definitely when selecting cards for this, like yes, we wanted to put in some cool just reprints like Cryptic Command, stuff people know that they like, but also. With Mystery, you always kind of like, if you have the weird choice, making the weird choice is a fun choice. And so Grist, you're like, yeah, it's the Planeswalker that's also a creature when it's not in play. That's a normal thing to do. And I think especially in contrast with the playtest cards that we'll get to in a little bit, some other wacky stuff we're doing here, it just creates this kind of environment that once again is very future sighty, right?
Yeah.
And as Future Sight is my favorite set of all time, it really fits the vibe well.
Yeah. pushes boundaries with what a card can do. This next card does not push boundaries in terms of gameplay. But okay, so this card's name is Horned Turtle. You all know it. It's a 1/4 for 3. Zakeel, why?
So there's a small number of exclusive arts that have appeared from Magic's history that appeared in some random language. So for one reason or not, over the past 30 years, either for kind of cool region exclusives or random alts for random reasons, they've appeared, and this is the first time that we're ever printing them. I think in the set there are about a dozen language alts, I believe, that are printed in the original language that they were found. They are all vanilla creatures, and Horned Turtle here is just a random, funny, awesome card that is hilarious. So
Yeah. Now, not all the language alts, or I think this is probably the only one, has alternate artwork that hasn't shown up in a main set somewhere, but they all are in different languages, right? So it's really funny, because you're like, what's this card I can't read? And then you realize it's a vanilla or something like that, right? And it works. And I've seen a few of these going around on Twitter, people open up over the weekend, and they are, once again, you open a pack and you're like, what is this doing in here? How did this get here? And I think it's super fun. And the moment, once again, a great pitch it was Eric pitched it to me, of like, we could do these vanillas in different languages because you don't have to know the name or the rules text. I thought it was just a really fun idea. And yes, there's a number of them in there. And nothing there you're going to be like, wow, this is blowing my mind from like a gameplay perspective. But even if it's a common, you open it in your pack and you're like, what did they do there? What did Wizards do? And it is delightful. I find it really delightful.
And just to be clear, since we showed a non-English card, this product is entirely in English, Zakeel?
Correct. Yeah,
I mean,
apart from that card, and I think a few
choices.
Correct.
As it turns out, when you make a product this complex, there's a lot going on.
All right. Speaking of complex, our next card is weird and spawned an entire deck archetype to itself. We really haven't heard from it since, but you are going to hear from Swans of Bryn, our goal again. Yeah, this card exists, and it's another one of those boundary pushing cards.
Right, another card you read and you're like, I've never seen this before. I mean, for me, back in the day, Chain of Plasma, Seismic Assault in this, you had a little combo going. Many players today have probably never seen that before. And you read this and you're like, A, this card exists. B, what is going on here? And I love those fun little throwbacks. And once again, a card you can tell stories about, right? If you've never seen this before and you show it off to people around you, someone's going to be like, oh, I had a deck with Chain of Plasma back in the day, and it has this infinite combo, and I love creating those kinds of stories.
Well, and the Maverick girls jumping in chat with the classic, hit our swans, draw some cards.
Yeah.
Hit our swans, draw some cards.
Yep.
It is a good question, though. Were there any sort of combos built into Mystery Booster where you're like, we'll take a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, and we'll see if people show up with them?
Well, yeah, so like in the first Mystery Booster, for example, we had Kiki Jiki and I think Pestermite were both in there.
Yeah.
So you could on very rare occasions live the dream. And there's a couple things like that we seeded in here, but I'm not going to tell you what they are right now. You got to find those on your own. There are some fun combos, though.
All right. Our next card is no stranger to, what am I trying to say? Controversy. Nexus of Fate is in here. Now, what you see on the screen is a little misleading because it's got that fake foil. But Zakeel, is this card foil in this?
No, it is not. I think this will be the first printing of this card in foil or in non-foil. Maybe a one-off Secret Lair had it, but it'll be the exact base version copy of this card in non-foil, available in a booster pack basically for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really exciting because I know a lot of people wanted to have non-foil versions of this card in particular because your deck is full of them, and so it keeps going back in over and over again. So I'm glad we finally get that non-foil out there for folks who aren't as into the foils, and it's really cool to be able to finally do that here. I know we've talked about ways to do it for ages, and to put it in the set is great. Once again, also in terms of where this showed up, this was a buy a box promo. Let's not forget. So we put the buy a box promo from a set in this mystery booster, really from cards from anywhere. Also, I love cards that have to do with like time for this because they're like, it's lost in time somewhere. Where did it come from? So there's some fun there.
All right. Next up is Tasha's Hideous Laughter, and this one is fairly recent in the grand scheme of things. But Gavin, what's unique about this card in this set?
Yeah, well, one really neat thing about Tasha's Hideous Laughter is the cards from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms have D&D character names in them, and so here we're able to reprint them because in a main Magic set they'd be a little harder to pull off. Right, there is no Tasha on Zendikar or something like that, so it's a nice opportunity to be able to do that here. It's also just a card people love. This is a very popular mill card, I think in Modern this card shows up sometimes. I've seen updating in some casual Modern decks. People start trying to mill me out because your mana curves are all so low. People love this one. I'm glad we could give it to them here.
All right, and then the last card in our Weird for Weird's sake section, Zakeel, you like me like a good fancy card, and this one is foil.
Yes.
And does this come in foil?
This card exclusively appears in foil. And this is our first Future Sight frame card that we've revealed today. And I know, again, some people probably were able to catch that over the weekend, but the Future Sight frame is returning to this set, which is super exciting. In Mystery Booster 2, the drop rate is roughly 1.1 per box, so a little over 4%. So it'll feel a little bit more like kind of classic Magic, where each individual foil is a little bit rarer than what we're doing nowadays, but there's a handful of cards that only appear on the Future Sight frame sheet in non-foil, and some of them also only appear on the foil sheet. So foil, only available in foil, it's fine, why not?
Foil.
Yeah.
You gotta get the foil.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of stories, this was, I have a nearly all foil Azami Commander deck, and for the longest time I could not find a foil. And so I had this mission to find a foil to the point where people got annoyed with me saying foil over and in. So I'm just glad we've got more of these out in the world.
And this I love the Future Sight frame. I've always loved the Future Sight frame. So to get to do it back here is just, we're not going to turn all of Magic into that. It's not actually coming. That is not the future we're going to really get.
Please
but
no.
It is fun to have a little bit of that. And in particular, I think Eric and Zakeel did a great job choosing cards that look really good in that frame. And there's a number of art pieces that are circular, have a central image of focus that turns out so good in that kind of circular looking frame. And you might see a few of those later.
Yeah, we are going to come back to the Future Sight frames. First, we are going to go with a different frame, which I don't think anyone saw coming. We're going to put...
It's so blinding, how can you not see it
We're
coming?
going to put this up on here. Let's see Comet, Stellar Pup, good dog. Zakeel, why?
It's a mystery. Why not? Yeah, so we haven't done white-bordered cards in a very long time. And as we were kind of in our early brainstorm sessions, I was working with Gavin and Eric, and I'm like, all right, guys, what if we just go all the way and bring back white border? There's an audience out there for them. There's a great pool of cards that I think people will really, really love. And as I'm selling this internally in the building, everyone just kind of looks at me like, are you insane? And I'm like, yes, that's the whole point of this. So.
But there are fans of it, for sure.
There are, and I am one of them.
Like looking at the internet this past weekend, so many people are like, yes, finally, white borders again, right? That's wonderful. And speaking of strange Magic cards, Comet Stellar Pup, right? So this is one of the non-Acorn cards from Unfinity. And it's just, I mean, look at the card will tell you how strange it is. It is a very unusual Magic card.
It is, believe it or not, this is a premier card in Canadian Highlander.
Yeah,
this is
believe it.
one of the best things you can do with 4 mana in Canadian Highlander. I had to get my one Canadian Highlander mention in the show. Yeah, Comet Stellar Pup.
And a really tough card to reprint. Like where else is that going to go, right? And so I think it's even seen like a tiny bit of Eternal play as well. So just getting that in somewhere so you can find more copies of it if you need to. And definitely one of those, what did I just open in a booster pack,
All right. Next up is a strange effect, something we have not, I don't know if we've ever reprinted this, maybe we have. But let's see Seed Time. Yeah, this is another odd duck from, oh God, when was
Judgment.
Judgment.
It was the hot thing when
Yeah.
Judgment came out. So the story behind Seed Time, if for those who don't know, once again, every card has a story, and I can't tell them all because we only have so much time. But Seed Time was an anti-Factor Fiction card.
Yeah.
The idea was they would cast Factor Fiction at the end of your turn, then you'd be like, aha, I have this Seed Time. Turns out that wasn't a very good plan, but it was what people were trying to do with it. I'll also call out, because I guess we didn't when we got into this section, is you'll notice that these have an expansion symbol. as
Yeah.
well, right?
Oh,
These have an expansion symbol and not the watermark in the corner. That's true of a few different cards in this set. Do you want to talk about why we did that here, Zakeel?
Yeah, I think one of the pieces of feedback that we've received over the past couple of years around variants is just being able to like tell the difference of a lot of these cards. So when we made the specialty versions of the specific sheets that are in this, in the white border frame, the future sight frame, and the playtest cards, which we'll get into in a second, we wanted them to stand out and just be very intentional and people to know where they're from. So if you get a cool white border card, you'll be able to know, like it isn't a vintage card, it is a new card. Many of them don't exist in kind of the M15 frame, so it's a little wacky, yeah.
Great.
Now, Zakeel, to stay with you for a second, since we haven't talked about this, how often are you seeing a white bordered frame card in a mystery booster pack?
One per pack.
One per pack.
Every
so that's like
pack.
a dedicated slot?
Yep, dedicated slot of white border, a dedicated slot of a future sight frame card, and a dedicated playtest card.
All right. Give the fans what they want. White bordered every pack. Every single pack.
And when the foil future sight frame drops, it kicks out the normal future sight card. Is that
Correct,
right?
correct.
Okay. All right. Now we're going to see a couple. We're going to go. We got a streak of 4 here. Some pretty powerful cards.
Very
getting the
fun,
white
very
bo-
fun cards. These
Very
first
fun. Very
two
super fun.
beloved fun cards.
Couple legacy staples. Let's see Days in glorious white border.
This was the card that sold me on using white border for what it's worth. Like Days, I've spent a long time playing Legacy about 10 years ago and loved kind of blue-red Delver or blue-red-green Delver, and Days was just a staple, and it just does something to people. So
You get dazed, you get annoyed. You get dazed by a white
There you
border
go, yeah.
Daze, yeah, your tournament's over.
I talked about this a bit in my video yesterday, but when choosing white border, we had a few different categories, like, oh, it might look really good in white border, or like, maybe it's, it'd be a neat tournament card to have with a reason to have a white border, like, oh, it's my one Dryad Arbor, I can find it in my deck while I'm going through quickly,
Yeah.
or something like that. There's also some just memes that we put in there, and Days is definitely one of them, because yeah, it really just adds that insult to injury of your white border Days hitting you.
Yep. Speaking of insult to injury, let's see Wasteland. Wasteland in
goes
white
with
border.
Days and Wasteland, peas and carrots.
Yeah, they go nicely together. You think you have your mana base perfect, then your opponent plays one of these, and you frown.
Now I do want to call out this has an uncommon symbol on it.
Yes. So the set symbols in Mystery Booster 2 reflect the card's original rarity. There is no, like Mystery Booster 1, there is no actual rarity distribution within the treatments themselves. So it's a kind of an equal flat rate across the entire treatment. So Wasteland will not appear more often than a rare card, but it does receive that uncommon.
Right, and just like in the first mystery booster, for example, on the white border sheet, there's 121 cards.
Yep.
You get one of those per pack, so every card is essentially 1 out of 121, with the exception of the foil sheet for
Yep.
the future sight foils. But that's where you get a little bit higher than the first mystery booster on card count.
Yep. I will note for chat, I see some people, you get it, you're tagging at Magic for questions in there. Save your questions for the end. We still have a bunch to get through. Oh man, yeah, we got a bunch more to get through. Save your questions for the end. I'll put a call out for them, and then we'll start going through them. All right, let's move on through a couple of these. Next, let's see, Goblin Guide.
Just a nice card in white border. I don't really have anything to say. You play
Classic
it on
red
turn
attacker.
1. You're like, please don't draw the Goblin Guide. They play this on turn 1. You're like, ah, come on, and this next card, too, also a funny card in white border.
Yeah, it's so you can find it easier in your graveyard, right?
Yeah.
Let's see, Uro. There you go.
And note we still get that legend crown at the
Yep.
top, right? So it looks a little different from the others. But yeah, that's exactly the reason, right? Easy to find in your graveyard.
The rest of your graveyard will be black bordered for sure. There won't be any dazes or wastelands with your Uros at all. So anyway, but I do want to. So our last white bordered card
Oh,
is,
man, this is an all-timer.
Odd Duck.
One of my favorite jokes in the whole set.
That's an
Unbelievable.
understatement.
Let's see Whiteout.
Seeing it is a really good
What you're
like the word
seeing on
choice.
your screen is accurate. Why?
Okay, so this was a card that there was some interest in reprinting because it actually shows up in Pauper sometimes. You can return to your hand a bunch of times to discard the Tireless Tribe. Long story. Anyway, and Eric had a funny idea. He comes over to me and Zakeel one day, and he's like, all right, we want to reprint Whiteout. It's like, cool. He's like, what if there was no art? And I'm like, what? And I start laughing. I start laughing uncontrollably because it's called Whiteout. It's in the white border sheet. Very funny gag. And then no art. It's just so perfect. And that's the kind of thing that in a mainline Magic set would certainly not pass muster. But in Mystery Booster, it is just, it makes you delighted. And really makes you be like, what, guys, what just happened here? Like, what is going on? Let's have a conversation. And I think that's really wonderful.
All right, let's move on to the Future Sight frame. We've already talked a bit about it, but this first card is certainly one that people were asking for.
This is going to be one of the first ones we locked in, I think.
It was like how can you not? It's Future Sight in the Future Sight frame.
If there was ever a more clear one to do, this is one of my favorite Magic cards of all time, so also I put my thumb on the scale a bit for it.
Yep.
But I mean, come on, you
Appreciate
can't do the Future Sight frame and not put in Future Sight. What would we be doing otherwise?
It's great.
With the original art I'll call out, by the way, so going back to Onslaught for Matt Cavanagh's piece.
Absolutely. Next up, let's see a card from Alliances, my favorite set.
Really? Your favorite?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting one. This is a reprint, and this art has never shown up in paper before for Contagion. Or at least I don't believe it has. So it's really cool to be able to do that here and get this kind of tricky to reprint free spell that uses -2, -1 counters
very
out in the
strange.
world, you know? Once again, not a thing that's very easy to put in a Magic set, but Mystery Booster gives us a nice place to do it.
Where's this art from?
I think it's either from, I think it's from Magic Online. I think there's a Magic Online version with
Magic
this.
Online, yes.
Yeah. Although there are some cards here that have brand new artwork, so it's possible it's one of those, but I believe this is Magic Online.
All right. Next up, don't know who's responsible for this, but here's some
Definitely me.
Oracle.
Definitely me, yes.
Blame Zakeel.
I am partial to Merfolk in Magic in general. It's my favorite creature type, and this is probably the best one. Doesn't quite do the Merfolk specific thing, but
Incidentally, a Merfolk.
Yes. True statement that this is a Merfolk. Yeah.
Speaking of combos earlier, I know this card was spoiled over the weekend. Demonic Consultation is in the set.
Yeah, on the Future Sight frame.
So it may be pretty hard, but you could combo someone.
Yep. All of you people who play more competitive sides of Commander, there's lots of. Lewis Stardust was playing in our event over the weekend, and she looks at me at some point. She's like, "Is this a competitive Commander set secretly?" And I'm like, "I'm not saying anything." But there are a few cards in there that if you enjoy that format, there'll be some cards, party cards for you.
All right. Next up, we're going to see two Legacy staples again. You know, Zakeel was like, "Hey, I used to play Legacy a lot," and then there's this set. So let's see Swords to Plowshares.
Calling this a Legacy staple, it's really just like a Magic staple.
It is a
you
Magic
know?
staple.
It's like Commander, Legacy, Cube, everywhere you go.
Any format where it's legal.
And it looks so good in that frame.
Just classic.
It just hits perfectly. That art in that frame, the one white pip.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know, what is there to say about Swords of Plowshares? That's been said for the past 30 years, but it is an amazing Magic card and just looks so at home here.
Now, that card, I believe we saw over the weekend. I don't think we saw this next card. I feel like a bigger deal would have been made out of it. So here is the Future Sight frame Brainstorm with the Mercadian masks. Zakeel, I feel like you were in on picking this art. This feels like a Zakeel choice.
Yes, very much so. So this is probably, I would argue, the most iconic artwork for Brainstorm. Back in the day of Jam and Legacy games, this was the coolest version that people were super excited about. This version of the card also, I think, really materially feels different from the original one and brings something new to the table. But iconic artwork, this will be available in foil. I'm just very excited to bring this to life. This is kind of a dream come true in a lot of ways.
Once again, that circular art just looks so nice in the kind of more circular frame. It just hits. It really hits.
All right.
Speaking of iconic Magic cards.
Speaking of iconic Magic cards, how can we forget the next two? I was very excited to put these in this show. This is from the era where I started, but I didn't get them as promos at the time because you had to read the backs of magazines. Anyway, we've got two cards that were originally promo-only cards, and we've reprinted them in a couple other ways since them, at least one of them.
Yes, one of them, yes.
One of them, yes.
The other
One of them, not so much.
Yeah.
So let's see Nalathni Dragon and Arena.
Yeah, so Nalathni Dragon was given out at, I believe, a Magic convention, right? It was given out at at a convention that Magic was at back in 1994, 1995.
Yeah.
It was convention-only promo. It, of course, has flying and banding, which is
A
delightful.
1/1 for 4 mana. How can you deny its power?
I don't think it's ever been reprinted, and we thought, given that this product has such a convention focus, it'd be really funny to put that card in here as a throwback to that. And also, just like, what a story to tell. This is artwork you've never seen before, because of course you've never seen this card anywhere else. And then Arena is a promo from a book, which I think you have strong feelings about.
So there were a series of books back in the day, and this is also where Mana Crypt and Sewers of Estark, that classic, where they came from. You would have to, back in the day, you would cut out the UPC label and mail it in physically, and they would then mail you back a card. So Arena was, I believe, the promo from buying the book called Arena, which to this day is the best Magic novel ever written. I stand by that. I've reread it multiple times. It's really good.
I love the variation cards. It's like, Sewers of Estark, or Winter
right.
Centaur, Mana Crypt.
Crypt.
Pretty similar power level cards. Oh, man.
Yeah. Anyway, those are Mystery Booster.
But there are some cards that are at a more classic high power level. Like maybe the next
like
preview
maybe
card.
the next card, because
I think you've probably seen this one before.
I mean, it just tells you Sol Ring is the future of Magic.
There it is.
Not going anywhere.
Look at that, and it just looks so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just looks so good. I mean,
This along with Plowshares is just like classic. Like, you just have to do it. Absolutely amazing.
Yep. If you open it in limited, it's strong. By the way, I recommend drafting it.
Big if true. Big if true.
It would probably also go well with our next card, although that's not why this card exists.
Oh yeah, and this next one's actually
This is kind of wild. So it's a powerful card. It's Urza, Lord High Artificer, in the future sight frame. But I want to talk about this art.
Yeah,
What is this?
I believe this is the Vanguard art from Magic Online.
the Vanguard from the Vanguard cards.
From the Vanguard cards.
This is the physical Vanguard cards, which I'm sure you all remember. For those who don't know, we made these kind of Vanguard cards back in the 90s that you could play alongside your decks that had like abilities on them, and a starting life total increase, and a hand total change, whatever. Yep. And they have some really iconic characters on them. Right, so
it was all like the Weatherlight saga. It was like
exactly.
Gerard and Miri and Krovax,
And those are Vanguard exclusive artworks. Well, until now. Zakeel, you want to tell this story?
Yeah, I think this was, I believe, Eric Engelhardt, again, one of the other designers on the set. In our development, of course, we go through White Borders, we go through Future Sight, and one day he comes up to us, he's just like, guys, I have an idea. What if we bring back, again, the Vanguard art on these awesome cards? Because both Urza and maybe a few other cards that people will see over the next couple weeks feature these, and it's just really, I think, telling the story of these iconic characters and bringing them to life in a way that just really reflects Magic's history.
And it feels so classic, right? These Vanguard art pieces, they feel like that classic kind of 90s art that Magic had, and it's cool to see them repurposed here on a number of cards. And also on a card like Urza, which gets played a lot, it gives you an alternate choice, right? If you want the classic Urza vibe, you have this version for you. And this only appears on the foil sheet, right, Zakeel?
Correct, yes. This only appears on the foil sheet in the Future Sight frame slot. So it'll be very exciting if you open one.
Yeah, and I'm sure you all are now running to search up all the other Vanguard cards to try and figure out who else might be in here. And that's not all of them, but there are some of them. And
it'll be a mystery.
Yeah, it'll be a mystery.
All right, next we're going to take another look at a subset of cards.
Oh, this one is wild.
Yeah.
This one takes some setup for sure.
If you think we couldn't top Future Sight frame Urza Saga Urza with the Vanguard art, how about Oracle of the Alpha with an acorn stamp?
Yep, so this is from Magic the Gathering Arena. It's an arena-only card. And when we were working on this set, once again, Eric had like this wild idea, and actually I talked about it too. So I was like, okay, what if, I went to Eric one day, and I was like, what if we put some arena-only cards in this set, right? Ones that could kind of work, and we would put them in. And in fact, you might have seen Mardu Outrider show up over the weekend from the Arena Starter experience. And we went through the list of the arena-only cards, and this was the card everyone wanted, Oracle of the Alpha. It's like, this is a super popular card on Arena. People love it. It doesn't really work in the Magic rules, so we decided we would put it in with an acorn stamp. So don't worry, it's not going to show up in Legacy or Vintage or whatever. But you can play it in Draft. So if you play it, you get to do it and go on the fun little quest. And for all those cube players out there, you can finally put a paper version in your cube.
Yep. So there are a couple of these. We're going to show a few. Next, let's take a look at Sanguine Brushstroke. This is another one that it makes a Blood Artist.
Right, it just creates a Blood Artist. It just shows up. You know, most people probably know what that does, and you can look it up if you don't need to. Now, I want to stress, there's not a ton of these. There's a very small number of them. We chose a few very intentionally we thought people would really want to own. So it's not like you're going to have to do a lot of this effect of conjuring cards or what have you. But there's a little bit of it, and just enough that you'll open it in a box and be like, I've never seen this card before, and then you look it up and it's an arena-only card, and it really adds some, well, mystery to a mystery booster.
All right, we're going to show one more of these, and it's Toral's Disciple. Lightning bolts for everyone, but mostly for you.
Yep, and this card, great and limited. You're 3 mana, 3/3 haste. Sign me up, and I can fit 4 lightning bolts in my deck. So yeah, some really, really funky stuff you can do with these. And there's a few more. Like I said, it's not tons and tons of them, but there's a few more, and I look forward to you all speculating on what they might be.
Yeah. Now I will notice these have the question mark symbol. They have the acorn. Where do they fit into the pack? Do they drop in a slot? Where are they?
Yeah, so they drop in the Future Sight frame slot at a different, slightly lower rate. The rates will be published, I believe.
When we publish the article?
Soon enough.
Which will come.
But they replace a Future Sight frame card in the slot.
All right. So. Okay. Our last section, backed by popular demand, are playtest cards. I keep going off screen here. We saw a ton of these over the weekend because, as Zakeel noted, you'll get one of these in every pack. So some of these, again, you may have seen. Some of them you didn't. I'm very excited for the third card on here. But the first one, very powerful card. Let's take a look at Mox Poison. Now, I want to note, for the first mystery booster, we had employees draw little doodles. We didn't do that here. Zakeel, who drew this card and why?
Yes, this card is illustrated by Dan Frazier, which is very, very excited. The artist behind the original Moxen, who has came back and done a handful of the new modern Moxen, as well as some signets and things over the past couple of years. Just super iconic artist with respect to Magic. And I know, Gavin, Mox Poison was, I believe, originally an unknown playtest card.
That's right. So kind of a fun little thing. I've truly been seeding this for a while. So when my unknown events kicked off in Philadelphia, these used the playtest cards as well, though they look a little different. They're actually stickered onto cards there. And I've actually been previewing cards from Mystery Booster playtest cards since the first unknown event. Every single unknown event has had 1 or 2 cards that
People
are actually
now
playtest
going back
cards.
and looking through all of them to see what could be in
Yep,
here.
so you can speculate on that, but it's been kind of a fun thing to seed in over the last little bit of time. And so you've been playing with them, if you've been coming to the Magic Cons, you've been playing with them already for well over a year. Which is just really delightful to me. And Mox Poison we did in the first one. People loved it. They're like, I want to get this for my cube. I want to be able to play with this card. And so I'm happy to say it's here for you. You can get a copy of it. And getting Dan Frazier to do that art is great. And also, to be clear, this card is ridiculous. It is as good as it looks. So turns out a Mox you can only use 4 times. Still a really strong Mox.
I mean, Lotus Petal's a Mox you can only use once, and that card's pretty busted. So yeah. Anyway, next up, Kozilek Completed. 2 words that definitely needed to be put together. Phyrexian Eldrazi. 2 more words that definitely needed to be put together. Yeah.
And that's exactly why we did it. I was working on the playtest cards, and I'm like, what are some fun mashups to do? I was like, definitely gotta have the Phyrexian Eldrazi, right? So we bashed them together. And what you have here is a very brutal package. These were a lot of fun to work on. These are sort of like a fun, when I needed a break from working on my main projects or something like that, working on these is just so much fun. And I made a ton of them, but I do want to give a shout out. A number of designers internally sent me just like, here's a random card I tried at one point. And we even ran an internal hole filling for anyone who wanted to submit funny mystery booster card ideas to me that I looked through. And some of them came from there. So big shout out to making it really a group effort inside of Wizards to get these made. And I'll call out, of course, I don't think any of you would think this, but just to be clear, these are not legal in any format but Mystery Booster Draft, right?
Yeah.
You can't play these cards in Legacy, don't worry about it. If you rule zero them into Commander, of course, that's between you and your play group, but they are legal in the draft format, which I think is really fun because it adds just a bit of wild stuff happening in every single draft.
Yeah. Speaking of wild stuff, there were a few points where we out-memed ourselves. In the case of our next card, which is Avacyn's Collar, the symbol of her church. Has that ability Shackle, which is fun and doesn't actually exist on a Magic card. Zakeel, just for anyone who doesn't know, what's this mean?
I do not know.
All right. So if you exist,
I surprised you with
if you
that.
exist on the Magic internet too much, like I do, there's a piece of flavor text on Ancient Grudge that mentions Avacyn's Collar, the symbol of her church, which has gone to be like a huge Magic meme on Reddit and Twitter and other places. And so I thought it'd be very funny to make a card that was Avacyn's Collar, the symbol of her church, which of course Ancient Grudge can destroy critically. But one of the fun things about Mystery Booster cards is I can make up whatever one-off mechanic I want. It really is inspired by Future Sight, which is fun, by the way, that the Future Sight frame is here in the set alongside it. It's really a set dream come true for me. And so Shackle does not exist, but it could someday, who knows? And you can put it on your opponent's creatures like a negative aura.
All right. We're going to try to run through these last ones pretty quick so we have time for questions. In other words, TLDR.
Yeah, your opponent ever played a creature and you're like, I don't want to read all that? This fixes it for you, right?
Yeah.
So they cast Questing Beast, you cast TLDR, it goes away. And one thing that I did try and do with these is I know some players enjoy putting them in their cubes. So many of them are priced at a cube potential rate. So black to exile, probably any creature that's going to be in a cube is certainly a card you'll consider putting in.
All right, next up we've got more Phyrexian stuff with You Complete Me. Oh, nope. All right, well, we skipped a Glimpse the Unthinkable.
Well, so Aaron Forsyth has this thing he does where
Yeah.
he likes taking card names with like blank the blank and putting a comma after the first word to create a legendary creature.
Yep.
And I told him I was working on Mystery Booster 2, and he's like, let me send one in. And Aaron sent me Glimpse the Unthinkable, which I put directly into the set. And his idea is you can't choose it. No matter what you do, it's unthinkable. You can't target it, you can't choose it, you can't choose the card name. It's all unthinkable. And I thought it was very funny. So
That is funny. All right, and then let's see what will surely be Reed Duke's favorite card, Jundamount. Maybe. There it is. Yeah, it's literally just a list of all the cards that Reed Duke puts in a deck.
Shout out to, 2014 Modern?
Yeah, exactly. Choose one of these cards that showed up in your 2014 Jund Modern deck and cast it. Also, I gotta say, I love the tiny gags on these playtest cards. So the reminder text for Retrace says, sorry, no room for reminder text, which, just a fun little thing we're able to do there. Ask someone, they'll know.
Yeah.
It'll be okay.
All right, let's throw up the product shots for Mystery Booster. And Zakeel, can you talk to us a little bit about how people can experience Mystery Booster 2?
Yep, so Mystery Booster 2 will be available at the MagicCon Las Vegas convention, as well as future conventions. And it will also be available for folks at home through Festival in a Box, which more details will be coming soon.
Yeah. Yep, more details on that soon. We don't have anything to reveal on Festival in a Box, but soon TM. Yes, very soon. Okay, now we are going to get to the Q&A section of the event. For those of you who've done this before or haven't done this before, the easiest way for me to find your questions is to tag @MagicInChat. I'll be watching here on my magical computer on my foot, and we'll talk about as much as we can. So let's start with, okay, so here was a question I saw a couple times. It might have been the same person, but still a fun question. Are there enough reprints in Mystery Booster 2 with either the white border or the Future Sight border that one could have a full viable deck? It says modern, but let's go any format. We saw a lot of legacy staples here. Do you think you could do a full deck in just the Mystery Booster Future Sight frame or white border?
Well, white border for sure. People already build white border commander decks, right? So you could, this upgrades your white border commander deck with all kinds of fun new options. Future Sight, you're going to be pushing it a little bit.
Yeah.
You're going to be pushing it on the Future Sight a little bit, but maybe you can make it work. Lands, of course, will be an issue for the
Sure.
future site. One thing people did see over the weekend, which I'll talk about now, is in white border, we did snow-covered lands. That people saw, I think, snow-covered island and snow-covered plains. Funny because the white border is the snow. Anyway, that's the joke. So now you've got great new land choices for your white bordered stuff. Future site deck's gonna be tough because of the lands. I think that's gonna be tricky.
Yeah.
But if you ignore the lands, you got some good heaters in there.
You can get
cobble
there.
something together.
You can get there.
I wouldn't say you're going to be winning a legacy tournament, but you could play something cool.
You'll be able to do something.
There's a lot of brainstorming in your deck, so
That's true. Fair enough,
something.
fair
You're
enough,
off to a
fair
good
enough.
start.
A lot of questions about tokens. There are no tokens in this.
No tokens in this. They would. That'd be very hard collation-wise.
Yeah.
You'd add tokens for an 1,800 card pool. Very, very awkward. You could open tokens that, I don't know. If you made a 2/2 zombie, there's the likelihood of you actually opening that would be pretty low. So.
Yep.
All right. Let's see.
If you need it.
Sorry, what's that?
I have you complete me if you need it.
Oh, sure. Let's open another card. You complete me.
So this card's idea was, what if you became a Phyrexian? So that was what this came from. Sort of like, I originally called it Form of the Phyrexian, but it wasn't an enchantment, so I changed the name. But yeah, your left field becomes 10. You get a Phyrexian Arena. So you'll probably win before that happens. You can also spend 2 life for 1 mana, like Phyrexian mana. So lets you sort of create an emblem here, which spells normally don't do in Magic. That makes you a Phyrexian. So that's what makes this a little bit of a mystery booster card.
All right. I think you can probably answer this. I don't know. You would know better than I, Gavin. Do any of the playtest cards feature a new mechanic that is currently in the file of an upcoming set?
There's one of the fun things we did in the first mystery booster is we did show off some upcoming stuff. For example, Enchantmentize came out in the very next set. There is Beyond Death as One with the Stars. We had flying counters in there, which hinted at Aquaria. Here's what I will say. I'll say Mystery Booster is a great test bed for us to try things out and put discarded mechanics in. So I will tell you for sure there are many mechanics in Mystery Booster 2 that we discarded for other sets and did not use. And yeah, maybe there are a card or two that are going to come out in the future. Who's to say? Stay tuned.
All right. Okay, we're going to do this question for both of you and answer it kind of however you want. Zakeel, let's start with you. What are your top 3 favorite cards in Mystery Booster 2?
Brainstorm, Wasteland, Days.
Right there.
We
So-
know who Zakeel is.
It's funny, Rex. That's gonna tell you who you are. I'll tell you my 3 favorite cards. Whiteout with the white frame. So I love all the gags. So I love
Yeah.
Whiteout with the white frame. I love. There's this playtest card, and I'm blanking on the name off the Abbot of the Sacred Meeple, which is 1 and a white for a 2/2, and it's got a brick of text that's got like this mechanic. It's like, yeah, during your each of your odd beige numbered production phases, if here's a list of things, and it's like there's exceptions of like shoe right and apiary. It's all nonsense. It's like a board game reference.
Yeah.
I love that card. I love goofy things like that. So I love both those. And then I gotta say I love the Colossal Dread Mom, or the Colossal Dread Mom, which is a card on the playtest card sheet,
Yep.
which I premiered in the Unknown events, and players loved. They flipped out over it. So much so that Rachel Weeks built up a whole deck that she's been showing off and talking about for months and playing of like, here's a cool playtest card, and then to have it actually printed in the set was rad. So of course I take the goofy direction, but there's a lot of fun reprints and some really deep cuts. Like there are some cards here. I mean, there's one I want to talk about, but hasn't been shown off yet. I don't know, can I talk about it? It's an uncommon.
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Why not?
Okay, sure, why not? So I don't know if we have an image for you, but
Probably not, but just... yeah.
before I came to Wizards, there was a contest to submit dual decks to Magic the Gathering Online. Where fans submitted contests, and then they were going to make the new Phyrexia versus Mirrodin Pure dual deck series for Magic Online, okay? Before I came to Wizards, I submitted my decks to this project, and my decks won. One of my decks won the fan contest. I won this contest before I came to Wizards, and they printed my dual deck. It was a Magic Online only dual deck, and one of the cards from that dual deck, Spawning Pit, with the symbol, the expansion symbol for the new Phyrexia versus Mirrodin Pure dual deck, appears in this set. So that is a very special card to me, because it's really the first product I ever worked on before I came to Wizards, and that finally exists in paper, in reality. Like I said, we don't have the image to show you here today, but it is a real delight for me, and definitely one that you look at and you'll be like, I have no clue where this is from. So very special card to me.
And
in the
I'll
set.
also say, if it isn't already obvious, so much of the set is really just a love letter to long fans.
Yeah.
Like there's tournament staples, there's fun memes, there's cool riffs referencing other
Vanguard
sets.
art.
There's Vanguard art from 20 years ago. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. But it's just really a celebration of Magic's history. There's something in there for everyone, and like we really were super intentional about just making it a really fun experience for people who can draft it and just have a good time.
Right, and I really love that. I think it helps bridge the gap in a cool way. Because if you're new and you open up these packs, you'll be like, I've never seen a lot of these cards before. There's weird old border cards. There's future sight frames. And if you've been playing Magic for 25 years, you open it up and it's all stories you can tell people about, and it brings that together. And one that we haven't even talked about, by the way, is in the first mystery booster, there was a dedicated slot in every pack for a pre-M15 card, so you didn't get a ton of those. We were able to do some work and remove that restriction. So actually, this time around, there's just a ton of old border cards floating around with old wordings and what have you. So when you open your pack, it really does feel like a journey through Magic history. And you know, we were playing the first ever draft, and Covert Go Blue took it down with a deck featuring a bunch of slivers from across Magic's history, right? Old border slivers, new slivers, slivers that affected both players, and like Brian David Marshall sideboarding in changelings to like get the abilities of the slivers, but only some of them worked, you know? So there's just so much fun stuff like that. And I can't wait for you to draft it at Vegas. It is going to be awesome. It is just going to be awesome.
You said something in there that related to a question I saw earlier, which, so a lot of these are older cards. We do a lot of picking up. Will the older cards have their original wording, or will they have updated Oracle text?
Yeah, so Future Sight, White Border, Playtest, anything that is like brand new to this product in terms of how it looks has updated wording. We retemplated those. But kind of the only way to make a set of this size work is to do kind of the Planeswalker symbol treatment that the first Mystery Booster pioneered, and we did here. So those cards all use pickup wording from the original printings, which I actually find really charming. You open a card from Tempest, and it's like, if this is attacking, it's +1/+1. And you're like, that's not how Magic cards look, and we all know what it means. But you read it, and once again, it's kind of a fun story to tell. So it's walking through history on those old cards is a blast, and they use the original printed wording. So you'll have some enters the battlefield, you'll have some if this is attacking, some paragraphs that don't make a lot of sense, and it's on you to figure it all out.
Yep. And then I am seeing some questions about knowing what's in the set, and is this going to show up on Gather and Card Image Gallery and stuff like that. So there will be a full, it won't be a full Card Image Gallery. All of the reprints will just be listed. But we will let you know before you can purchase it. If you want to know, you don't have to. If you want to know, the full list of everything that's in the set will be available on dailymtg.com. It's not today. There will be a partial card image gallery going up today, but it will not be the full set until we get closer to purchase. Leave it a little mystery for a little bit.
And yeah, while the list will be going up, I really encourage you, if you are going to play it, go in blind, knowing as little as possible, because it is so fun to just crack a pack and have no clue what stuff is in there. So we've given you a few little hints today. Maybe follow social a bit, but if you're coming to Vegas, try and come in knowing not everything, because it'll be really fun.
Yep. And I'll just, because I'm seeing more questions about this, I'll reiterate something Zakeel said before, is that this is a convention exclusive. There is the Festival in a Box. You can purchase the Festival in a Box, which more details to come on that. We did, for Mystery Booster Original, we did do an in-store version. We don't have anything like that to announce right now. So for now, Mystery Booster 2, Convention Experience or Festival in a Box is how you will be able to get it. There are questions about these events being on demand or register beforehand in Vegas. I don't know if either of you two.
I don't know.
They're not on the events team.
Yeah. I'll say that you'll be learning more about that soon.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, we couldn't put Mystery Booster 2 up on the website
Right.
yet. So and Past Times was also out at Gen Con working this past weekend. So stay tuned for more on that, more information on that in the very near term future.
Okay.
But I will say there'll be tons of it at Vegas.
Yes.
If you come to Vegas, there will be
You will
tons
have
of it
an
around.
opportunity to play.
So.
Do the white-bordered cards come in foil?
They do not.
Okay.
I've never been in foil.
They've never been in foil, and a foil white-bordered card looks very weird. We've had some samples randomly from like a few years back, and they look like silver-bordered cards. It's like kind of jarring.
Yeah, I mean, even when we started doing foiling in core sets at the time, we black-bordered them instead of having them white-bordered. Yeah.
It's very weird. Yeah.
And as
Mr. Booster 3.
Maybe.
What I'm telling everyone is like, we got to save something for Mystery Booster 3, because I don't know how we're going to top this, right? This is wild.
Yeah.
So this is definitely the wildest Magic set we have ever created and released. It is full of just wild, wild, wild stuff.
Yep. Okay, and then I see questions specifically about Festival in a Box. More details on that are coming soon. TM, very soon. Not today, but very soon. So stay tuned for that. All right, we are actually just about out of time. This flew by. We had a ton of cool stuff to talk about. So Mystery Booster 2 is coming soon. You know you'll be able to play it at MagicCon Las Vegas. Details on that are coming soon. Festival in a Box. Details on that are coming soon. But you know what? We had the event at Gen Con this weekend, and so we wanted to make sure to recap a little bit of it, show you some cool new stuff, talk a bit more details, but more information is to come. Stay tuned to dailymtg.com. Follow us on social media, and we'll certainly update you in all those spaces. So thank you, Gavin. Thank you, Zakeel, for showing up here, and we will see you next week.